Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
What up, everyone? Welcome to Call Camp, Coach the Coach. I got to tell you, I've done a lot of these now, Keenan, but this is far and away the most excited I've been for one of these call camps. I had my sales VP, Ted Martin, he went to me and he goes, why aren't we teaching people how to coach? And I said, that's a good point. We probably should be. And then I said, well, who should we get? And he said, well, get Keenan. Like there's nobody better at coaching. I got a chance to meet Keenan on the ski slopes and had a chance to stay at his house in near Vail Resort. And a lot of the coaching tips for sales coaching you're going to learn today, and the methodology you're going to learn comes from his experience as a ski instructor, which I just think is so cool when you can take one skill from one place and port it over to another place. So Keenan, why don't you say hello to everybody?
What's up, peeps? How you doing? I'm looking forward to this. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and hopefully we can deliver.
That's it. I think we've got a lot of managers, a lot of directors, a lot of VPs out there ready to go. So I was flying down to the Dominican Republic, dodging hurricanes Irma and Jose, and thoughts and prayers for the ones that got hit by these hurricanes. It's been a horrible season. And on the way down there, I was reading Keenan's book, Not Taught. And one of the points in Keenan's book is that life is a series of trade-offs. That point really hit home with me. I'm in that age group where you're getting squeezed between parents that are starting to age, little kids at home. I've got 4 kids under 8. The business is growing and absorbing a lot of my time, and I just feel like I'm pulled in every direction, and I'm constantly making trade-offs, and I never make everybody happy. So, Keenan, I'm just curious, how would that apply for managers in a sales organization trying to figure out how to spend their time?
So, I mean, look, when I talk to people about coaching, far too often they say something like, I don't have time. Is really what you get. And I can't stand that phrase. I can't stand it. And it's become a default phrase. So what I do now is I make people change it from I don't have time to I'm not making it a priority, and then ask themselves how they feel about that. So, in the book I talk about we can trade, time sitting on the couch for time at the gym, right? That's one of the things I say. It's a trade-off. Do I want to sit on the couch and watch football, or do I want to go to the gym? I get to trade that, and I get to choose those. Well, as managers, we get to choose where we spend our time with our people, and we get to choose how we spend our time with our people. And if we don't feel that coaching is a priority, I'd love to have a debate and discussion with you and take you out behind the woodshed, because if you don't believe coaching is a priority in your job as a leader, then what do you think your job is?
Amen. And that's why, a lot of the time when we hear what are the barriers to coaching, that whole let's break down that I don't have time BS, which I agree with you on. Another frequent refrain is, but we don't know how to coach. No one ever taught my managers how to coach. So you're going to learn a process today for being a great coach, and it's simple. The key to the whole thing is it's very simple. Before we do that, let's get into a poll. Everyone, if you could vote, I'd appreciate it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to vote on, do you currently use call recordings for coaching? Do you coach call recordings? It's a simple question. You either coach call recordings or you don't coach call recordings. And oh, by the way, I know a lot of people always ask about call recording legality. There's a wonderful brief on our website, 2-page brief. If you look in the chat box, you're going to see execvision.io/resources. You click there, you can get to a 2-page brief on this. So, do you coach call recordings? Yes, I frequently do. Yes, we rarely do. Or no, we don't do it. We don't do it at all. In which case, hopefully after today, you're sold on the idea that this is an important thing and a priority, like Keenan said. All right. Wow, look at this. 74% voted. That's pretty damn good. I'm going to go ahead and close it there. 76. If everyone voted for president, that'd be pretty good too. All right, let's see what we got. How do I share this? I don't even know how to share it. I'm going to tell you the answer. So 43%. Oh, there it is. Share. Okay, I figured it out. So can you see the poll results? Is that showing up for you, Keenan, there? 40%?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, it is. We can see the number. At least I can.
Pretty darn good, right? I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the fact that you're doing this. Everyone, keep it up. All right, let me just make sure. Can you still see my my slide here?
I don't see a slide.
What about now? Why bother? You see that?
I don't know.
Okay. Someone chat and tell me if you see my slides real quick. Throw a chat in there, ask a question. I want to make sure, because I went through a whole half webinar one time and someone said, I can't see your slides. I still just see the polls. So I want to make sure that the poll goes away and you can see my slides. There it is.
There you go.
Okay, so now let's talk about, well, why do we bother? What's the point of coaching? Well, faster onboarding. These are financial things. This is stuff your CFO is going to like. Better sales productivity. I had one of our customers call the other day and say a dial to connect rate is flat, but our connect to appointment rate is up 46% ever since we implemented this coaching program. 46% better connect to appointment rate. For them in their business, we're talking about serious money. Improved pipeline, reduced sales cycles, higher close rates, more revenue. Those are the business reasons, okay? So if you're not bought into the people reasons about, hey, look, let's help folks get better, help them achieve everything they can ever want to achieve. My whole motto in life has always been help as many sales teams as possible to be as good as they can be. And I see that with Keenan too. So Keenan, let's talk about it for you, and I'm going to hand the wheel over to you. Coaching to accelerate revenue. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the best way to start it. Look, at the end of the day, right? I like to simplify things. When you become a manager, your job is no longer to turn the screw. So in this case, that's a metaphor for selling. You don't make the cold calls anymore. You don't do the deal strategies anymore. You don't have the conversations with the buyers. You're not setting the buyer strategy. I mean, I could go on and on. Your job is no longer to turn the screw. Your job is to get other people to turn the screw. So once you accept that your job is actually to get people to do their jobs and to do their jobs well, then it becomes an automatic default that the best thing I can do is focus on helping those people that work for me and report to me to be better at what they do. Because if they're better at what they do, they're going to drive more revenue. They're going to shorten sales cycles. They're going to increase average deal size. So that's really what it's about. And there is no more efficient way to do this than coaching. Other than maybe making an exec vision from what I'll call observable moment. We'll talk about that in a minute. Other than some sort of product like that, it doesn't cost a lot of money to coach people. Once you learn to do it, it's efficient, it's effective, and it's the most effective way to blow it up. So you really got to think about leveraging that, because it's the most effective and efficient way to accelerate revenue. Now, look, people want to feel empowered. Coaching is about no micromanagement. Let me start that way. If you're a micromanagement organization, you're a micromanagement sales manager, you need to stop. Nobody wants to be micromanaged. You can't tell people how to do it. People want to feel empowered. So to make them feel empowered, but to give you the ability to feel as if you have some sense of direction and control, I've created what's called the Freedom Box. And basically what the Freedom Box is it says, look, I don't care how you do it. I don't care how many calls you make. I don't care if you use emails. I don't care if you use social media. I don't care if you use the telephone. I don't care how you do it. But this is what you have to do. Here's your goals. Here's your objectives. And here's what you can't do. You can't go door to door. You can't, you can't spend money. Those type of things. You create a box or boundaries of what they can't do. But other than that, leave them alone. Let them use their own creativity. Look, every person isn't the same. Some people are better at writing. Some people are better with emails. Some people are better with social. You want that intellectual diversity inside your organization. But if they're unable to deliver, then you squeeze the box a little more and you give them less freedom. You say, look, it seems like you're struggling, so I'm going to give you some more guidelines. I want you to do this and this. You have freedom over here and you can't do these things. And then if they still don't get it, you squeeze the box even more and you take some away. But if they still can't get it, you don't fault to micromanagement. You say, look, you're not a good fit here, and jet them. But the truth, the key is you want everybody in this big box with all the freedom in the world. You want people to feel as if they're controlling their own destiny, that they're doing their own work, and they can do what works best for them while still delivering what you need for the organization.
I love.
So you want a freedom box.
Yeah,
Yes.
Keenan, I love that concept of the freedom gets squeezed when the objectives and the results are not achieved. If you can't achieve the results or the objectives, then we have to look at the activities along the way, and
Yes.
that's the lesson from cracking the sales management code that we both read.
Yes. Too often sales managers start with a small box. They say, you need to make 50 calls. Look, if you're one of these managers that you have a guy or girl that's at quota or pretty close to quota, over quota, and they didn't make enough calls or they didn't check some box and you're riding them, look, I'm going to slap you in the back of the head. There is nothing more defeating than being activity managed when someone's making the results and they're doing a good job. Let people make decisions themselves, and it's only when those decisions aren't coming to bear that you need to start beating them up. Well, okay, beating up, strong word, but you need to squeeze the box and stop telling them what to do and be prescriptive, but avoid it at all costs. Because a prescriptive environment is the result of bad management, not bad salespeople. Okay, become a killer coach. I mean, there's nothing more to say that. We're going to talk about how to become a killer coach right now. And as Steve said, it's a pretty simple framework, right? I learned this as a ski coach or a ski instructor. And the steps are simple. You as a manager have three responsibilities or three elements in this. You have to observe your team. So you have to find what I call observable moments. And I don't know, Steve, while I'm talking, if you want to whip out and just go to that Forbes article and drop the link in here, they might like that.
Yeah, that's good. When I get into the calls, I'm going to go grab that Forbes article. Good call.
So, guys, you got to observe your people. If you're in a position and you can't see what they're doing, you don't have visibility into how they sell, if you don't have visibility into the types of calls they make, if you don't have visibility into the emails they send, if you don't have visibility into the conversations they're having with their customers, etc., you're not in the right place. You got to get in the right place, because you can't coach, number one, without observable moments. But two, I'd argue you can't even lead, because if you can't see what people are doing, then you can't help them. I mean, as a ski instructor, the very first thing I do when I'm a private ski instructor for Vail. So someone pays a lot of money, like a lot of money, almost $950 a day. Yes, you heard that right, to ski with me. And so I better make sure I deliver the best experience possible. So when we get out there on the lift up, I ask lots of questions. You know, tell me how often you ski. What are you hoping to accomplish? What other sports do you play? When's the last time you skied? Is there anybody that you like, or is there anybody that you admire as a skier? Like, I ask these questions. And then when I get on the snow, I'm like, you know what? We're just going to ski a few runs. So you just ski, have fun, and I watch. I just follow behind them. I watch them go down the hill. I get ahead of them. I watch them come down the hill. I take them on different terrain to see where they start to get a little uncomfortable. And that's my observable moment. Then what I do is we take a break, or we're riding up the lift, and I describe what I saw. And that's the describe piece of this. This is what's critical. First you observe, then you describe to the person you're coaching what you saw. What you don't do, what you don't do is you don't tell them what you didn't see, right? So Steve, are you back?
Yeah, and I remember very well when we skied together, which, by the way, thanks for doing it for free. and I remember you didn't, Chad Burmeister and I were asking for tips, and you didn't do anything. You didn't give us any until we asked, and then once we asked, you just simply described what you saw us do. And I think in that case, when I was going through the moguls, I was leaning back too much on the tails of my skis.
Which, by the way, in skiing, there are 4 key elements to skiing that all of skiing derives from. So many skiers here, you want to get better, you might like this. There is what's called edging, and that's the idea of going from edge to edge on your skis, edging or tipping. The next one is what's called foot-to-foot pressure, and it's how much pressure you put on each foot, because you have to move the pressure from left to right. Then there is rotation. How do you rotate your body in the skis? And the last one is what you had trouble with was what's called fore-aft. You're getting too forward on the skis or too back on the skis. And so, yes, that's what I talked to you about. And by the way, I think you have all these broken out if you want to move to describe. Yeah. Not on the same slide. So I want you to describe to folks. Now, this is critical. Do not describe what you didn't see. And this will be the biggest trap. You'll listen to a call. You'll be on you'll be out on site with them. You'll be watching them, and first thing you want to say is, "Oh, you didn't ask for the close, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you don't want to do that. Because to tell somebody they didn't do something, that doesn't help them very much because it doesn't anchor them in what they are doing, right? So if I had said to Steve, Steve, you didn't tip, or you didn't absorb at the front of the mogul. Well, his first thought is, well, okay, what did I do then? I don't know. What do you mean I didn't do that? So you really want to take a minute to really ask yourself, what am I saying here? And only describe what you saw. And now what you can do with that is when you're done describing what you saw, so if someone didn't ask for the close, you can say, hey, I listened to you. You asked her excellent questions. You set up the call well. You positioned the product well. You got a good understanding of the business problem. And then you said thank you and hung up. I just described what happened. I didn't say anything after that. Now I'll tell you what happens after that. So then when you describe it, not what they didn't do, what they did do, you want to describe the impact. What is the impact of what they did? So when you say those things, you can say, so the impact of you setting up the call well is she bought in. Did you notice? She was prepared. She knew what you were going to ask her. When the impact of you, I forget what I said before, but the impact of you then just ending the call was now you're not prepared with the next step. The customer isn't sure where to go from now. You may have a difficult time re-engaging with her. So now I just shared with you the impact of what you're currently doing, which anchors you in the positive and or the negative, which makes the learning process better. So using the example with Steve that he shared, when I shared with him, hey, I saw you leaning back, and I don't know what advice I gave you after, sorry, Steve, but when I observed him and said, look, I see you on the tips of your skis, the impact of that in moguls is it doesn't allow you to control your speed, because in moguls you need to keep your skis on the snow. When you're leaning back, it causes the tips to come up in the air as you come over the mogul, makes it very difficult to absorb the impact and get the tips back down the hill. And that's when you start going faster, or you end up shooting out over the mogul and getting too much air. That's the impact, right? So now he can process as he's skiing why he isn't able to slow down, or why he's getting bounced around, and why he feels like he's out of control, because I explained the cause and effect. Then once you do that, you want to go to prescribe. This is where you get to offer the insight about what they could be doing, which is the inverse of what they didn't do. So using that quick cheesy example of I used a second ago, where you said, I liked how you set up the call, but you ended it this way. And you say, listen, next time what I'd like to suggest you do is when you get to the end of the call, ask the buyer if there's anything they didn't get. Ask the buyer to set up a follow-on call at a specific time and date, and ask the buyer to get you something. I don't know, I'm just making this up. But now that's so that's a prescription. I've just prescribed to you what to do next, or a different behavior. And by doing that, now I'm giving you something to look forward to. And if I had been a good coach to Steve, I would have said, listen, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to come forward on your skis. And as you see the mogul, I'd like you to bend your knee or bring your knees up to your chest. Mm-hmm. It's going to feel awkward. You may have a difficult time doing it. I might have given him a drill on a flat because it's kind of hard to do the first time in the moguls. But I would have said, come forward and see if you can get those knees up faster and keep the tips down. That's a prescription. And then I would say the impact of that prescription. Mm-hmm. If you can do that, then it should be easier for you to get the tips down on the snow, and you won't accelerate as fast. You won't get bounced around. Hey, the skis won't come out. Yeah.
Keenan, yes. Let me jump in here with a story. It's like super relevant that something I'm dealing with right now. One of our we have a prospective customer that's we're listening to some calls for them and trying to help them identify where their challenges are within that call. And they had a hypothesis that if they have the rep share their screen, they've got some data that shows, preliminary data that shows if they have the rep share their screen, then their conversion rate will go up, and their monthly recurring revenue for each individual lead will be higher. So one of the things that I love this framework. I'm going to use it today, is the first thing is you say, okay, observe what you're seeing, rather than saying you're not sharing your screen. Instead, you say, right now you're describing. What the reps are doing is they're trying to describe what happens in their software verbally, and the buyer very clearly doesn't get it and doesn't connect. And then they'll say things.
That's the impact.
Sense. Right, exactly. There you go. So observe, they're not doing it, right? So right now you're trying to describe the software and describe what you're doing. You're describing the software, and then the impact is the buyer's confused. They don't get it. And then the prescription is, hey, next time try pulling up, in their case, it's clear slide so that you can show their screen in the moment. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep, you got it. Yep, that's it. That's exactly it.
Really good, man.
Yep. So when you do that, then what you need to do is you want to start, again, go back to the observable moment of what you taught them and watch. So had I been Steve's instructor and I kept doing it, my job was to get some progress in them in a day. Once I gave him that advice, I'd watch. And I'd see, okay, first off, I'd want to understand, which we'll go to in a second, did he even absorb what I told him to do, right? Did he even understand it? But I'm going to watch what happens, and we're going to repeat the cycle. So that brings us into what Steve is responsible for, or what your coachees are responsible for, and that is absorb and apply. When I tell Steve to move forward, right, and center himself over the skis, is he absorbing that? Is that getting in? Can he understand it? Does he know what I'm saying? And does he understand what he needs to do? I need to validate that, because if someone doesn't understand what you're asking them to do, it doesn't help. They won't be able to apply it. And so you really need to check in and make sure that's happening. And again, observable moments, watch them, ask them, do you understand? Sometimes I actually make people recite it back to me. I make them explain it. I say, explain it to me then. Tell me what I just told you, explain it to me in your own words. So I want to make sure they get it. Sometimes it's simple, like your example, show the screen. If you don't know that, we got bigger problems. But when it's more complex, you want to make sure they understand it. Then, where the really difficult part comes in is the application, right? All right, now that I know you absorb it, can you actually do it? And that's where it gets hard, because like anything else, and skiing's a great example, I know I told Steve what to do, and I know he's working on it, but you just can't do it automatically. It doesn't come instantly. It did everybody be Olympic skiers. I mean, it takes time and practice. So the same thing there, when you got to start watching them apply it, and then it repeats itself, right? So, and then finally, there's, yes.
Go ahead,
and then,
frame it.
Okay, so frame it and target is just make sure that they know where they're going, right? So you put it in a frame that they know where this is going, what the outcomes are you're trying to achieve, what is going on, why it's valuable to them, and then make sure that you stay on target with that, and it doesn't go in left field, and you don't get off target, but you stay focused on that to help them get to where they're going, and you help them understand why it's valuable to them, and they're moving in the right position, preferably measurable if possible.
Great. I absolutely love this. All right, so now help us with the cadence here.
So this is just an example. Anybody can have any type of cadence they want, but I believe you absolutely have to have a cadence. And what's most important with this is, I think you call it synchronous and asynchronous coaching, and feel free to jump in. I believe that at the bare minimum, there need to be at least 2 types of coaching. This one calls for 4, but 2 types of coaching sessions scheduled, non-negotiable. You have to show up in this type of cadence, so that every week they know they're getting coached, and every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, a quarter, whatever you want it to be, they know they're getting coached, and they know what they're getting coached on. We don't want asynchronous or impromptu coaching to be the only thing, because it's confusing. A lot of times, Steve, you use the example of and what this is about is in football, the video review. Every Monday, the team knows it's film day. They know they will be critiqued. They know they will be coached. They know everybody's watching video. It's a fact. Same thing here. Your team needs to know every Thursday at 9 for John, every Friday at two from with Jennifer, you're going to sit down and coach them, and you're going to share what you observed that week in the pipeline meeting, or in the is that me? Sorry, man.
It's not me. I don't know what the hell that is.
It's someone calling Google Voice. Sorry, I don't know how to answer it.
Just keep going. Ignore it. You're on a roll.
All right. So they have to know what's coming. They have to know what's coming. They have to understand that they're going to be coached and what they're going to be coached on. And it's your job then to have the observable moments all lined up, whether it's through pipeline, whether it's through exec vision call recording, whether it's going on ride-alongs, whatever it is you've built for observable moments, you need to be prepared to go in and talk to them and help coach them and elevate their game. And I like to separate them, right? Tactical selling versus strategic long-term things like you desire to be a leader, or your collaboration, or your communication style, or whatever that is. They're not necessarily tactical to the concept of selling. So that's what this is. Build your own coaching cadence and stick to it. That's the key. Stick to it.
And repeat and repeat and rinse and repeat again and again. And that's where the article I wrote that went viral there. It was all about the two most important words in sales management. I just kept over and over again in my conversations with sales leaders hearing, Steve, what we really need to do is we need to be more consistent. What we really need to do is we need to have more accountability. So I kept hearing consistency and accountability, and consistency and accountability all come through repetition and repetition.
Yep, absolutely.
What is coaching not, Keenan?
Yeah, this is important, guys. This is important. Don't screw this up. I'm telling you right now, don't screw this up. And what I want to say before this is coaching is a culture. Yeah. You're building, do not underestimate what I'm saying here. If you're going to successfully add coaching into your organization, be prepared that you are making a cultural shift. And that cultural shift is this coaching is for the salesperson's own personal improvement. It is not a performance review. You are not there to critique them and judge them against performance. If the person is at 50% of performance and you're coaching them, you don't bring up the fact that they're at 50%. This is not to berate them. It's not to beat them up. It is simply to make them better. And I would actually go so far as to say that if they are feeling beat up because they're at 50%, you're doing a crappy job, because you take someone who's been back to skiing. I could take someone who's only skied 3 times in their life. My coaching for them is no different than the person I'm coaching who's been skiing their entire life and they're trying to perfect their craft, right? They're both in a relative position from a skill perspective, and all I want to do is get them to that next skill level, regardless of whether or not you can only ski a blue or only a green versus you can ski black, but you want to be able to ski double black cliffs. It's still relative. You want to improve. So do not, I cannot say this enough, do not treat this like a performance review. Do not critique. Do not be negative. Do not beat them up. Do not make them feel bad. That is not, your performance review can be once a year. You can judge all you want at the end of the year, but do not use these for that. One of the things I like to say too is if you get this culture right, here's your litmus test. Anybody ever here who's ever taken a golf lesson, anybody who's taken a ski lesson, anybody who's taken a tennis lesson, a music lesson, a painting lesson, when you are open to coaching, you are desperate to have them watch you. So if you're taking a painting lesson or a singing lesson, think about it. How often do you say, oh my God, wait, listen, you told me to do this, work for my diaphragm. Wait, do I have it? And you want to do it for them. And they're like, no, you miss it. Wait, and give me a few minutes. And you work on it, and say, okay, come listen. Are you ready? You ready? Same thing with skiing. I tell someone to do something, like, oh, that makes sense. And they try it, and they say, watch, did I get it? Did I get it? They, oh, almost, do this, think about this, try this. They try to, okay, wait, watch me now. If you have the right coaching environment, they will be begging you to listen. They will be begging you to watch, because they realize that you can make them better, and that's what you're doing. And then finally, this is sort of the point. If they're not coachable, get rid of them. Yeah. Do not waste your time with people who are not coachable. They're dead weight. It's not even worth it. Just get rid of them. Talk to HR and get them out. And that includes if they're making their number. Get rid of them.
You know, what's funny is we have a thing that we do in our business when we interview. We do role play. We have the candidate go sit in one room and make a phone call to someone in another room, because they're going to be doing inside sales, so they might as well get on the phone. And what we do is we have them prepare by learning some company, whatever company does in advance. And when they make that mock call, we're not looking for how well they do the call. We don't really care. What we do is when they make the first call, the person who receives the call, the buyer in this case, in the role play, walks into the room and says, okay, next time what I'd like you to do is blank. Actually, they should really use your observe, describe, prescribe model too. But they walk in the other room and they say, do this differently this time, this one thing differently, whatever that is. And then next time, all we're listening for is that they incorporate in that prescription for what to do the next time. If they try, not even how well they do it, if they try. And that's a good litmus test of coachability. You can't really fake.
Yep.
And now you can thank Keenan.
Yes.
Look, I tell you what, this is, it's so interesting. I'll give you a little something, then we'll jump in and actually watch some call coaching on some real calls here. Guys, I went a little longer on this meet here because I think that this is just the best. I've seen a lot of content on coaching. I've never seen a model that's so clear, so intuitive, so easy to apply as that describe, prescribe, impact. It's so great. Observe, describe, prescribe, impact. Excuse me. It's great. Orange Theory, going back to the whole culture thing. One of our colleagues here, her name is Neha Jindia. She's a member of this gym called Orange Theory. I'd never heard of this before, but basically what they do is they create this culture of excellence and culture of accountability and culture of kind of coaching and lifting each other up and pushing each other to be their best by literally putting your biometric stats on a screen in front of the rest of the gym in the spin class. And that's the kind of thing, if you, just like Keenan saying, if you can create an environment where it's safe, that everyone feels comfortable, that the number of calories they've burned in their heart rate is on the screen in front of everyone else to see, that's when you know you got it. And it almost becomes a little bit, I'm cautious to use this word, but a little bit cult-like when you have that coaching environment, and you'll see the whole team performance raise when it's done the right way. Little side story there, we do a call of the month contest. It's a great way to do that and encourage that. So you observe, you have the reps observe themselves and describe what they did. And then there's usually very little prescription because of how well they're doing things. And it's an opportunity for everyone to essentially show off, just like Keenan's talking about when the person says, watch me do this, Steve, check out this call. And that's a magical thing for any group of human beings doing any activity, to have that type of childlike just enthusiasm for it. I love Kevin Dorsey here. He says, if you aren't willing to listen to your own calls, why would your buyers want to listen to your calls? I just love that. It's so good. Any final thoughts here, Keenan? Otherwise, we're going to get into the calls.
Nope, let's get into the calls, baby.
Let's do it. All right. It's going to be a little hard to understand, so do your best here. Lean in. But what we're going to be watching for is, in this case, it's going to be me providing the feedback to Ethan. And this is before I really learned Keenan's model. So let's see how well I apply, or in this case, probably did not apply.
But whatever state COCs are, and where the county jails that are large enough to be the healthcare contractor are located.
And we know this is hard to understand. This is a person who's mumbling quite a bit, but bear with us.
We just kind of work with them one-on-one, and then all the procurements they do work through a competitive RFP process. So we're not even closing, we don't generate leads or close deals through like a sales process.
Yeah, no, I understand. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was just talking with another person earlier this week that they're a federal contractor, and I'm curious if you guys use like a procurement web page. I know the government often has these lists that they need to fulfill contracts, and I was working with somebody earlier this week that had that same kind of situation where they said they know their customers or what kind of projects they're going to be doing, but they were taking in data from these government databases. Are you guys doing anything like that?
Yeah, no.
I'm going to go 1.5x because it's a slow talker here.
When we go after something, it's because the state is outsourced all the provider to do it. We're not like a virus corporation or a Motorola or something like that. The federal government is constantly putting out, lists of these items that they're buying. They would need to peruse that. We don't sell that way. We're like a hush kind of.
Okay. So I kind of hear that you guys have a small amount of contracts that you fulfill, and that you kind of work with those partners that you have on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, so let's stop here, and I'll explain what's happening in this call because I know it's hard to understand what the other person on the other end of the phone. So in this case, I'm providing feedback to Ethan. What we've always done here, Keenan, and it's similar in some ways, but it's really not as pure as what you're talking about with your methodology, is that the rep is providing critique on their own performance. So really in this case, Ethan is the one that's more or less doing the description of what he's doing. Because what we talk about is if the salesperson can correctly identify certain skills and why they went left in a call instead of going right, that's probably a good indication that they know what they're doing. So again, they're doing their own sort of self-observation and self-description in this particular case. And then you see my comments here about what's going on. Good job getting her talking. In order to convince her to take a meeting that it's valuable, you need to have a relevant example. But then my feedback, and this is why I wanted to play this one even though it's hard. In this case, it's actually Marketo that we're calling on behalf of him. Marketo has, they're calling into an organization that has they sell to a small number of people. So my whole feedback for Ethan is, hey, before you go and call a hospital like this or someone in healthcare, start to have a relevant example and cut off that objection that we know they're going to object about marketing automation. Why do we mean marketing automation in a hospital? We know they're going to object about that. So cut that objection off at the pass, right off the bat, by saying, hey, I know you sell to a limited number of organizations. So that was my attempt of being prescriptive to Ethan.
Yes.
Love to hear your comments on this.
So look, this is all prescriptive, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, the prescription might be exactly what he or she, well, in this case, Ethan needs. What this is missing is what he actually did, right? There's no description of what he did, nor is there a description of the impact, right? So that he understands by doing what he did, this can be the expected outcome, versus by doing what you suggest, this is what the expected outcome could be, right? So when you say, here's the value of the meeting, what you're really suggesting is that's the impact. When you do it this way, when you're able to research ahead of time and come up with a hospital-oriented case study, I think if I'm getting this right, then this will be the outcome. But you want to start with, this is what you did. It appears, I didn't hear a customer-oriented case study.
Yeah, what I would do if I'm observing what I heard is what I observed that I heard, what I observed along the way is that Ethan didn't come having, or I shouldn't say didn't, because that's not what I'm observing. What he did is he got into a conversation with someone assuming that they're selling one-to-many, which is how many Marketo.
Good, that's excellent. Yep.
Right, and that's the observation. So then the impact of that is you've got someone who's kind of confused and saying to themselves, I don't think this is a fit. I don't think it's even worth talking to this person. It's not a fit because they don't understand my business. And then the prescription is, hey, if you showed up to the table with a relevant example of someone who sold one to few, then that would allow the buyer to have the dots in their connect click and the light bulb in their head to go off.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well said. Yep, that's excellent.
As is the way on Call Camp, I usually put myself under the microscope. So in this case, it's my coaching. And look, the reality is, guys, I hope by me putting myself out here like this, I'm demonstrating that theoretically, some people will say Steve Richard is a good sales coach. Frankly, I'm not. I'm not really a formally instructed sales coach. I'm learning new things all the time, and the fact that I have a guy like Keenan to be able to teach me and show me a few things is huge. So this is a skill. It's a learned skill that requires practice to be an excellent coach.
So by the way, while you're doing the next one, I really encourage people out there. We've got a lot of people on the call. If you have a question or want clarity, please put it in the question thing, ask, and we'll get on it. This is, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, we've got probably a lot of questions on there. I'll get to those in a minute. So let's listen to, this is Rachel's call. And
Okay.
interesting example, she is being coached by a peer in this case. So the comments that you're going to see are coming in by way of peer coaching. And it's a much shorter call, and we should be able to hear it. Let me just go like this. Ghislaine popped her head in here and said she couldn't hear it too well. Hang on.
American Doctors, this is Joanna. Hi, Joanna. This is Rachel from Public Relay. How are you? Good. How are you? Good. Thanks. I feel like I'm catching you towards the tail end of the day here. Do you have a quick minute? Yeah. Sure. So I was doing a little research and figured you'd be the best person to speak with regarding some of your media monitoring and earned image. Is that correct? Yes, I'm the director of marketing. However,
So there you go. I'm going to jump in before you do. Jackie is observing and describing.
Yep. It's exactly what she's doing. Yep.
Simple enough.
Have some contacts with some national media buyers, so I don't know that I'll be able to answer some of your questions, but I'm happy to try. Okay, yeah. The purpose for my outreach is to actually find a better time to continue the conversation, to share some of the work that we've been doing in the industry, utilizing our hybrid approach of human sentiment and software. I'm sure you're familiar with vision and meltwater.
All right, so let's talk about this comment right here. So Jackie, I would avoid continue the conversation here. You haven't had a conversation yet. It's okay to let her know you want to find time later, but give her a reason why. Why are other companies working with Public Relay now? Why should she pay attention? So comments on the coach here, Keenan.
Yeah. So what she's done here is she went quickly to prescription, right? And so what I would have done, would like to have seen, is her start with what her observation is of the call. One of the things I noticed is she quickly jumped into the sell. So the buyer said she wasn't sure if she was the right person, and but she was happy to answer the questions. And then Rachel just quickly went to start selling. Right. So I would like to say that to her, right? And then I would say also you went to what she did here. I wouldn't say avoid because she's prescriptive. I'd say then from there you quickly went to this idea of continue the conversation. I would ask, was there a conversation previously, right? Then once I described what I saw, then I would say, hey, some things I would suggest. First, acknowledge the person on the other end of the phone. Because when she said, I'm not the person, but I'm willing to listen, it's a great opportunity to acknowledge her time. Hey, listen, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll try to make it worth it. The impact of that is she now thinks you're talking to her, not at her. Right? So she's kind of there, but she's like what most people are going to do. Most of you are going to do this. You're going to want to get right to the prescription. So we're going to do right away. You're just going to do this. But help anchor them in what they're currently doing, right? And so I would say in this one, from a description perspective, after I described I heard you go right into the sales call. I heard you say you want to continue the conversation when there hadn't been a conversation before. So what this will do, the impact of this, could make this person feel as if you're not actually selling to them, but you're just going through a script that there's nothing personal or customized about this call.
So here's another observation that I'm getting just looking at the waveform, and I didn't pick up on this until your observation made me realize this observation. Take a look at this. Look at that big block of sound with only one little interjection right here. And I think my observation is that's a symptom of what she did right here, which is exactly what you're talking about. Yep. That's right.
Just on a whole side note for anybody listening here, if at the beginning of the call, the salesperson is talking more than the buyer, you have completely screwed up. Because you shouldn't be pitching anything in the beginning. All you should be doing is trying to get that buyer to talk so you can figure out how to create value. That's a whole different discussion. But in the beginning, if it's like this is going nowhere fast.
Yep. No, that's good. Now we'll play a little bit more of this one, then we'll jump to the last one.
Some of the sort. Yes, we actually have a contract with Meltwater. Okay, great.
And what she did there, just so you know, is the big players in the PR world are Meltwater, and Cision. Those are the big dominant players. Cision was originally Vocus, and Cision and some private equity group rolled it all up together. So she's basically saying, hey, look, I know that you're using either Cision or Meltwater, which is a good way to demonstrate that you know something about the persona and something about the vendors that they use. But we'll keep going here.
Yeah, most of our clients have either worked with Meltwater or Cision as well. And we actually conducted a recent study with MIT and Toyota to measure the media about Toyota. And we found that only 15 to 20% of the information that the communications professionals were receiving is accurate and relevant to their business goals. So again, we'd just love to find a better time to share some of this work with you.
Yeah, if you don't mind email, I'm going to actually forward your information to my division contacts. They're the ones that would handle the larger contracts, whether or not we would, submit an RFP for a different vendor. But
all right, I'm going to jump in here, Keenan, because I'm just going to come with the observation, and then you tell me if this is right. My observation on this one is that actually I'm with Jackie on it. She brought up this research from MIT, which is really interesting, and love the credibility. So she brought that up, and she brought that up on a time in the call when it was probably less appropriate to bring it up from the viewpoint of the buyer. And it's interesting. It's an interesting statistic. So using that as a shocking, interesting statistic, they did not land with the buyer. And as a result, the buyer doubled back around again to the very beginning to say, well, you know what? That's interesting, but I'm not your person. It's the division. I'm going to send this forward your email to my division contact.
Well, that's the impact. Yeah, but yes,
There you go. Okay, so now, now clean me up here a little bit. Keep going.
Yeah, that's the impact. So there's two ways. I'll do it from what's the coach's? From Jackie's perspective, because there's an observation here just from a pure selling perspective that no one's picked up on, that this girl's messed up this entire call, and I'll drop that in a minute if you want me to. Sure. But yeah, if you go back, if you go back to the other comments Jackie made, so I can at least coach the coach.
Yep.
One more. So here, where she said it's good that you confirmed they're using Meltwater. Okay, so that's the observation, and I'm fine with sharing thoughts about an observation, right? So it's I prefer not to say it's bad, but if you can judge less in the observation, it's better. But if you want to be reaffirming, go for it. So she basically observed that she used Meltwater and said that's good, right? So and this one, it's okay. But it seemed a little out of the blue. All right, that's fine. I guess I can live with that. If you're going to bring this up, make sure Meltwater is linked to a story. There's the prescription. Yeah. She doesn't really talk about the impact of this, which I would have liked to have seen. So then she lets her keep going. She goes to the next one. Yep. And she says, only 50% of the information received is accurate and relevant. That's shocking. Make sure you convey this with the pace. This is more Jackie's opinion now, or stating a fact back. She's really not coaching anymore here, except to say, convey that with pace of your tone. She didn't tell her this is a perfect one. She didn't tell her what her pace or tone is. Right. So this is back to me telling you to go faster or go slow or rotate your hips faster. But I didn't tell you how fast or slow you're rotating them. Right. So she just skipped right over the observational piece, and that would have been perfect for her to say, your tone sounds disconnected from the information. Right. Your tone doesn't sound. Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, Keenan. Sorry, I'm interrupting here, but that's it. It's a really interesting statistic, and the tone sounded as if it was being read off of a script, as opposed to it sounding as if it was something that was, actually interesting to Rachel.
Yes. So I would describe that, and then say, and then when it came to the prescriptive piece, what she did here, I would tell her to what that should sound like. Don't convey the pace of tone. Like, tell her what it should be. Should it be excited? Should it be affirmative? Should it be stronger? Should it be faster? Like, tell her. Don't just, that's like me saying, turn the ski, right? Or right. So, yeah, be more descriptive. Now, in all of that, from the coaching perspective, I think that what she missed in this whole thing is Rachel was unable to, I'll do it, observe and describe. Rachel talked about statistics. Rachel was engaging and asked for permission. Rachel talked about who they worked with. Rachel dropped a lot of facts and data. That's what I heard in the call.
Yeah.
Right? The impact of that was none of it landed on the contact. None of it really landed.
Yeah,
and because it didn't. Oh yeah, sorry, thank you, Joanna. None of it landed on Joanna, and so Joanna started looking 1 minute and 45 seconds into the call. The impact was Joanna was looking to get off the call. Right? What I would prescribe in the future is I would suggest that Rachel lead with a problem or set of problems that she knows this type of person has, so that she can begin to ask questions around that problem to get her to confirm yes, to Jackie say, no, for Joanna to say, yes, we struggle with this, then have a conversation about those problems so that it's easy for her to set up a call to say, look, we're going to set up a call to make this set of shit go away. I still have no idea, now I'm out of coaching mode, have no idea why Joanna would want to reschedule a meeting with Rachel, because I don't know what values she brings. I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was your Mona Lisa, Keenan. I'm not going to do a third. You just drop the mic. I'm not kidding, man. Like that, I've never really broken down that coaching process like that, but that's exactly right. Let's just revisit this. I think it's important for all of us to revisit this because this is powerful stuff. And the reason I think this is such powerful stuff is I think back to when I got certified to be a scuba diver, and they used the same model. I think back to, you guys will make fun of me, but believe it or not, when I was a kid, I was an Irish step dancer. I'm not even Irish. Yeah. You don't like that one.
We have got to see video of that. We have to.
It's somewhere. Half Polish kid, half Swiss, a quarter Swiss, quarter Hungarian. I'm Irish step dancing, but there were a lot of girls for what it's worth. Anyway, so yeah, no, like anyone that I've ever worked with that was an excellent trainer and coach was doing this, maybe even unconsciously competent along the way. This observation and description, and as a person that's receiving that coaching, it's so much more disarming, and it makes you want more as opposed to making you revile the coach and want to run away.
Yes.
Observe, describe, prescribe, and then there's the impact there, which we didn't have in this originally, and then absorb and apply. Very, very good. So let's go to the end here. Guys, take action. I'm going to go jump in, and we're going to look at some questions, but here's how you're going to take action. In the chat, at the very beginning, I put a couple of links. What we'll do, Keenan, is we're going to send the Forbes article out with the recap afterwards. But I put a couple of links. One link is for Keenan's got. Tell us about your ebook there, How to Coach a Winning Sales Team.
Yeah, it basically an ebook form of what I went through. More detail, more information, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Beautiful. So click on it, get it, piece of cake. Enough said. And then Exec Vision's resources. You'll see Exec Vision resources listed there. In that, there's the Ultimate Coaching Playbook. You can check that out as well. So let me see if I can figure out how to do questions. I gotta get some sort of a production person to help me. Hang on. Thank you. No, I can't see your slides. I had about 500 people say that. All right. So Dave asked, he said, I've heard advice that basically goes like this. First, ask the rep what they did well, then ask what they could improve on before offering observations. And actually, Dave, that's a framework and model that I had learned previously and that we have been prescriptive of in our Ultimate Coaching Playbook. So, Keenan, what's your take on that from coming from a professional ski instructor standpoint of a rep or the person learning the skill first trying to identify and describe what they did?
This is going to be I can see it already a bit controversial, but I used to do that before I started teaching, and I don't like it. And here's why. I want people to tell me what they like to accomplish, and I'd like them to tell me what they don't feel they do well. What I mean by that is this. I want the higher levels. I don't think I do well at cold calling, or I don't think I do well at asking for the close or whatever, right? So then I can
discovery, whatever, right?
Yes, I don't handle discovery well. So that I'm okay with because that gives you a place to go. But anything deeper, if the person knew what they were talking about, then they would probably already be working on it. So really, rarely does someone come to me in ski school and say, hey, Keenan, I'm really struggling with my my edge control and, you know, my foot-to-foot pressure as I, you know, when I'm on steep inclines off-piste. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I guess when it comes to super experts, they know what they need to do, so they're struggling with the application piece. So I guess I'm in the middle of the road on this one. You want people's insight into where they think they need help, but to ask them to self-prescribe or to self-prescribe, if you're leaving stuff on the table because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Is the best way to describe it. So I like a hybrid at best, but I like a hybrid at best. Ask where they think they like the help. Ask them where they think they're not doing well. Yes, but don't ask them to go much deeper than that because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think I probably have to modify that ultimate coaching playbook to that point. That's well said. Dave also asked, any tips for coaching live phone calls? So I guess Dave has some software where you can like whisper or listen in on live calls as they're happening. And then he says he likes to go on to Slack and offer ideas, but he says he's getting mixed results. Any comments?
I do not in any way, shape, or form like live coaching at all. It fucks people up. I'm sorry. The worst thing I can do is if you're skiing down a mogul run, Steve, I'm like, no, hey, forward. I mean, that is the worst. And what's funny about it is I do a ski mogul camp and I ski with world-class Olympian skiers. I just did an interview with the silver medalist in Sochi, and he's going to win the gold in Penang coming up soon, or Pyongyang, wherever it is. But anyways, and I was doing that, and I was making some progress, and my coach yelled, Keenan, more outside foot pressure. And right in the middle of it, I tried doing that, and it just hosed up the rest of my day because you when you're in the act, you can't throw somebody a curveball. So I don't mind live listening. I love it, but do not start telling people what to do while they're doing it. It's the worst thing. They're not going to remember, number one. Number two, you can't tell them what you're observing. You're just throwing shit at them in the middle of it. Oh my God, don't do it. Don't do it.
Interesting. All right, so let's talk about this. What do you think the optimal team size would be to be able to effectively coach? I've heard 5 to 10 is a good team size to be able to keep up and get enough face time with each. Tony asked that question.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, look, long before call coaching came in, there's been studies and stuff. This is the optimal team, or I don't think it's optimal. I think the largest team a single manager should have is direct reports is 8. I think anything more than that becomes unwieldy. Anything less, of course, that's the corporate policy, and 1 looks ridiculous. But yes, I would say long before call coaching came in, the optimal sales team, or the biggest sales team should be is 8. Optimal is 5 to 8, and that's what it should still be. Direct reports, not.
It's old Jack Welch stuff.
Yes.
Mike was just messing with me. He was saying, hey, how do I find those links to resources? Where do I find those? So that's why I copied and pasted them 3 times. Mike, you got me. Well done. I know Mike well. He's got a pretty dry sense of humor, so you got me.
I like Mike.
So Chad says, and it's our friend Chad Burmeister. He said, also in the skiing group that goes out west every year, he said, I find a lot of sales leaders that have very, very different approaches, and the prescription part can vary widely by leader. What are your thoughts on that one, Keenan?
Look, I'm not even going to touch it, right? I mean, I have what I believe good selling looks like. I think here's how I'll answer it. You have to decide what good selling looks like. You have to decide what good skiing looks like. You have to decide what good tennis looks like, what good art looks like. And then whatever you decide, you coach to it. That makes you you. Now, if what you decide is good selling sucks, you won't last so very long. You'd be the best coach in the world, but if you're teaching the wrong stuff, you're hosed. And I think a good example of this is again, skiing, because you brought it up and it's what I do. You have no idea how many people I know who have friends who think they're good skiers because they're better than the average weekend warrior, but they suck when you compare them to professionals or really good skiers, and they take their friends up and they tell their friends what to do. And they may be coaching them really well, but what they're telling them sucks. So I can't speak to that, right? It's because I don't know what people's prescription is, but Chad is right. There's a separation between how I coach, right, which we're talking about, versus what I coach. I can't help you with that unless I'm actually listening, but 2 different things.
Yeah, and this is one where I'm going to go back to that blog article I wrote on consistency and accountability. I find that for too many companies, and I'm sure you do too, Keenan, one of the biggest challenges is just simply getting alignment from the managers on what a good sales call is at different parts of the buying process. And when you do that exercise, it's actually much simpler than people realize. Just simply write down what are the selling roles like SDR, account executive, customer success, and then what are the call types, the primary call types each of those people has to execute. So for an SDR, there's like 2 call types. It's real simple. It's like phone prospecting to talk like switchboards and admins and then getting a prospect on the phone. It's not rocket science, or maybe like lead follow-up. For account executives, it's probably some kind of a first scheduled discovery call, some sort of a group demo, consensus building exercise, and then some kind of a negotiation, and onward and so on and so forth. So the whole thing is within each of those unique calls that everyone has to do, they have to execute, you should identify those 3 things. And that's what's so beautiful about the skiing methodology is that there are really 4 fundamental motions or movements that people have along the way. So if you can take any skill and break it down into, I think 3 to 5 is the magic number, otherwise people's heads start spinning. But if you can come down to like, what are the 3 to 5 things that you must do? And if our leadership team has an agreement and consensus on that, aha, guess what you get? Consistency and accountability.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it when you talked about the skiing 4 things, because again, I'm sorry to those who aren't skiers, but notice when I said they're fore aft, tipping and edging, a rotary, and foot to foot pressure. Notice I didn't say anything about poles, right? How many, or hand position. Notice I didn't say anything about that, because at the end of the day, hand position or polling affects fore aft most of the time, or rotary. So I don't need to worry about that. I need to get to rotary. So you just nailed it. Get to the key ones and you can go from there. But if they're wrong, you're going to coach the wrong stuff, and there's nothing you can do. There's nothing I can help you with there. If you're coaching the wrong stuff, you're coaching the wrong stuff.
Keenan, I worked up a sweat over here. This was a hell of a call camp. I appreciate your time. Thank you. I'm going to give you a round of applause for everybody who can. Thank you.
Thank you, baby. I hope everybody else got some value out of it. I really do.
This is so badly needed. The coaches needed this out there. So here's the deal, everyone. Next call camp, we're returning back to more of our regularly scheduled programming. I got Tim Reisterer from Corporate Visions. If you've never heard this guy, he's an absolute badass. He talks about messaging and storytelling. Really, really fascinated, all rooted in neuroscience and brain science and how people process information. I've read a couple of his books. I've watched his talks. I can't believe we got him, frankly. It's kind of showing you that call camp is coming of age. We get people like Keenan and Reisterer. That's when you know you're doing something good. So everyone, please tune in next time in October for the Tim Reisterer call camp, and we're going to actually be asking you to submit calls to that one. Everyone, if you could submit your best example of messaging. We're going to be focusing laser focused on messaging and differentiating your messaging through storytelling. With that, I bid you a good afternoon and happy selling, everyone. Take care.